Support from friends, family, professionals, and community organizations is particularly important to individuals with special needs and the families that care for them. EP's annual Family and Community issue is filled with information and personal stories that are intended to help improve the lives of those with special needs and those who care for them. Sign up and read the issue for free at www.epmagazine.com.
Suicide is preventable, and each of us has a role to play in suicide prevention.
Suicide is complex. There is no single cause.
And it's not always a mental health issue. It could be loss of a job or home, financial or relationship issues, pain, or leaving the military.
Suicide does not discriminate. It affects all ages, races, and genders, veterans or not.
If you know a veteran who is struggling, connect with them. Let them know help is available.
There is quick and easy access to services in times of crisis.
Dial 988, then press 1. Talking about it is okay.
Don't keep it inside. Don't be ashamed. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis. I'm your host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hoobazoo Network. You can find out more on hoobazoo.com. I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asek of Asek Real Estate, Army National Guard veteran Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing, and my supporters, all veteran-owned businesses, Bone Frog Warrior, Case on Shaving Company, Black Cat Designs, and Savage American Woodwork. Thank you. We're starting off in 2024 fast. Oscar Mike on the move, in mission. The missiles left the rail. It's already broken the sound barrier, and I've got a packed show for you tonight. Why is that? Because one of the first shows we get to talk about is veterans homelessness, veterans advocacy in this space. And I have a group out of Philadelphia with the VBC Giving Foundation. I want to welcome Jessica and Dana to Oscar Mike Radio. Ladies, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yes,
Okay.
thanks.
So if you're watching this, to up here is Jessica, and over there is Dana. Sorry about that. First of all, when it comes to veterans homelessness, you always have somebody who's interested in me. I think it's terrible that we have to even say that in this country, but we do. And you all have a very unique way that you're going about tackling this. Before we get into that, who wants to go first and kind of tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we'll kind of ask some questions about how you got into this foundation and what you all do.
I'd love to defer to Dana first because she is the driving force behind Veterans Village. So I respectfully defer to her, and then
Very well.
I'll
Very
follow
well.
her lead.
Okay. Well, Travis, I guess first and foremost for your audience, I did not have the honor and privilege of wearing the uniform of the United States military. I was what Bugs Bunny would refer to as 4F, bad hips, bad knees. So I started serving those who served a couple decades ago, both with the USO, serving active military and their families, and then later founded a small but mighty homeless shelter called Haven for women, helping achieve veteran empowerment now. Took over a defunct shelter and redid it from the roof to the basement and everywhere in between. And it was kind of a sorority for ladies who were transitioning from homelessness and preparing to live independently, sometimes for the first time in years. And it was a very military structured organization with merits and demerits and watch command and a structured schedule. We took a mind, body, and spirit approach to our ladies. They did very, very hard work, working on making good decisions, leaving their bad decisions in the past. And Veterans Village was spawned from Haven because as I was in charge of Haven, I looked at all the leases that were coming across my desk for our ladies who had worked so hard to put their lives back together, potentially be reunited with children that they may have lost in the system during their bad decision-making period and their homelessness or housing insecurity. And government agencies were throwing them into scattered sites in absolute squalor. And so the cycle repeats itself. How can we put somebody into a bad neighborhood in a building that is subpar with vermin, mold, drug activity, and not expect them to start losing their way and making bad decisions, and then the cycle repeats itself? I took one particular lease that didn't even include a refrigerator and brought it to my dad, who was alive at the time, an Army vet from the Korean War era, and just said, Dad, this is crazy. We're working hard. The ladies are working so hard. And it's just a vicious cycle. We all feel like we're banging our head against a bureaucracy here. And he very squarely looked at me and said two things. First of all, this is not your first rodeo with a charity. And second of all, you build buildings for a living. Why don't we build a building and show the government how it's done? Okay, let's build a building. So our family foundation put in the first $1 million of seed money to put our money where our mouths were, and the idea of Veterans Village was born. In addition to it being new construction, in addition to it being safe and resilient and respectable housing, the village concept is really about the camaraderie that's ever existence in the veteran community. So that if somebody's having a bad day, one of the neighbors is going to understand. They may not have the same backstory, but they understand the process and what they may be dealing with and can keep each other on a positive route to independent living. And that's the village concept, and here we are. So I couldn't do it alone. I still can't do it alone. So I had to recruit absolute rock stars, which segues nicely into Jessica Baker and why she's on our board.
Well, thank you so much for that, Dana. And yeah, Jessica, you're up. Let's hear it.
All right. I am a veteran, served in the U.S. Navy, flew P-3s, naval flight officer for 8 years, then separated and started a journey of construction management. So for the past 15 plus years, almost 20, have been doing construction and currently serving as chief operations officer for a general contracting company here in the Bay Area. I was introduced to Veterans Village and the foundation via one of my alumni. I went to the Naval Academy, went back for a reunion, and Hunter Jones, we just started talking as you do with at alumni or reunions. And he told me about this wonderful organization that he was part of, the Veterans Village Giving Foundation. And with what they were doing at the time, trying to get this first one, the Veterans Village there in Philadelphia, online, he and I started talking about all the hurdles that they had to go through, and I knew, immediately what they were struggling with at the time, just given the nature of construction, the nature of the beast. And he said, I really think that you need to, if you would be interested in joining our board, we'd love to have you. And it was great. I was looking for something really to kind of throw my efforts behind, something that I really believed in. And I could also bring something from my knowledge base, again, which is the construction industry, and how to get things built. And nothing goes according to plan, and that's okay. It's how you manage those, the things that get thrown at you, which I do think is comes from my time in serving in the military. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. There's a lot of managing expectations, but it's also about getting the mission done. And that's the ultimate goal there. And so in the current role, right now we're on a fundraising campaign to finish out some of the tie up the loose ends from the Veterans Village. And Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're close to 90% occupancy at the village, and with only a handful of units left to go, and a waiting list for the 1 bedrooms. So it's been a great success, and the next project, when we've identified a couple of sites, and I can't wait to throw some guidance behind that as we get into the real construction efforts and development, and just push for that next village and the next one.
So a couple of questions and things come to mind hearing you all talk. Let's talk about some of the challenges. One of the things that I run into a whole lot is, hey, I don't want a group of homeless veterans or disadvantaged veterans living next to my neighborhood. That's one. The other one is, well, we can give you this housing that is, let's be honest here, it's pretty much derelict and just ready to be bulldozed. But, the permitting process to build something new is going to be ponderous. And then, how do you get the veteran back on their feet once you actually get them housed? Those are all like 3 main things I hear over and over and over again. So let's just start with the first one, because, I'm going through reading the website, and let me see if I get this right. It's the volumetric building companies and how you all have addressed this, and saying, to your point, Dana, we're going to build a structure, a home that is going to meet the veterans' needs where they are better than what they can find out there in the market. But how do you find land to build on that people won't be like, well, no, we don't want that by us. We're not going to, prove that. How do you get around that hurdle first?
Well, for this particular Veterans Village, the upside was it was a by right piece of land. It was vacant land, but had already been zoned for multifamily. But we did meet with the neighborhood association and the local redevelopment authority, and they certainly did have their concerns. But as a builder and a real estate developer, and Jessica can echo this sentiment, nobody ever wants anything in their backyard. And if you let that stop you, then you're not going to be in real estate or construction for very long. The laws are the laws on the books. Unfortunately, neighborhood associations, RCOs, all of those people, they're non-elected officials, and they get together and say, I don't want any change in my neighborhood. I don't want any affordable housing. I don't want any of this. And sometimes it's a fight, and sometimes it's a by right piece of land, which is what this particular one was. And I will tell you, Travis, that for this, we did the path of least resistance as much as we could for Veterans Village, Philadelphia, because we wanted to get it built and get it built swiftly without red tape and bureaucracy, which means that we did not take 1 dime of city, state, or federal money. We did not go after tax credits. Not to say that for future villages we wouldn't, but it just adds layer upon layer upon layer of difficulty and time consumption. And for this particular one, we wanted to get it out of the ground, open, welcome residents, move them in, provide them with resources, and then say, ta-da, we know how to do it. The other part is that we're an open source template, which means that if other people, whether they're VSOs, like-minded individuals, landowners, churches, and other religious organizations, real estate developers, anybody who says, I have the time, money, and volition, but I don't know how to build a building, come on in. We're going to teach you how to do the entire process. We'll put it under our flag if you'd like us to. We'll teach you how to finance it, how to raise money. But we cannot build our way out of the homelessness and housing insecurity in our veterans population by ourselves. So it's really important. And one of the key reasons that we have a Hunter Jones and a Jessica Baker, and one of our 2 of our other board members being veterans, but not only veterans, but in the affordable housing and construction space, is really to bring skill sets together, to Jessica's point of, we know what the obstacles are going to be, and we're going to help not only ourselves, but other organizations overcome them, so that you're not subject to the brain damage and the -2 forms and the hurry up and waits and all of that. We'll take the hits for you. We know where our failures are. We did a postmortem. We know what's coming down the pike in front of us, and we're happy to share that information with other organizations.
So looking at the website, and it's vbcgivingfoundation.org. I'll have that in the Oscar Mike Radio show post. It goes into this whole aspect of volumetric modular construction. And I was very interested in that because, okay, you've gotten the approval to build, and now you're going to build. It looks like you can build as small a space as you need, or you can build as many units as you need, but it's all like put together like Lego blocks to reduce costs and also increase stability. Where did that idea come from?
So I am a real estate developer. My big girl job on the for-profit side is that I build apartment buildings, and I build them using modular construction systems. I've done sticks and bricks, I've done rehab. And once I did my first modular construction in 2016, it was a revelation of just the ease of use and the efficiency, how environmentally friendly it is, how energy efficient it is. I mean, there's just so many reasons that I found to build modular. VBC Giving Foundation was spawned out of VBC, which is Volumetric Building Companies, a global manufacturing of modular construction systems. We just recently decided that we were going to rebrand the foundation, not to be beholden to the modular industry, because a lot of states are very peculiar about modular still. And a lot of people don't understand it. They look at it and say, modular, that must be C boxes or flat packs or, subpar construction. So we're really opening that up by changing the name of our foundation, which we just filed paperwork to do, to Veterans Villages, which speaks directly to what we do and what we stand for. And if somebody is a site builder, or somebody's coming to us and saying, look, I have Tunnel to Towers just did with a hotel motel in Houston. They just took it, gutted it, refurbed it, and made it into a type of village situation. Why not embrace all of the possible villages, regardless of how they're built? Personally, I like the modular concept because it is ground up new construction. It's not rehab. It's not finding out what's behind those walls in a rehab that we may or may not know what's behind there. It's also cost effective and time efficient, and it's resilient, and it's great for communal living because of the sound attenuation and the energy efficiency. I mean, there's, I can go on and I won't, but that doesn't mean that Veterans Villages needs to be sort of pigeonholed into modular. Jessica, for example, is a site builder. So, her companies and the people that she works with across the country have expressed interest in being part of our next village. I'm certainly not going to turn them away because we build different systems, right, Jessica?
Absolutely. So I think, Dana, you hit the nail on the head when you said it opens it up. I think that one of the things that we're cognizant of is being able to streamline efficiency. And that's what you get, especially if you are able to, if you're able to capitalize on the modular construction. Now that takes a lot of hurdles too, like you just said. It has to do with what the site will bear. Can we put these modular components on the site, first of all? And does the jurisdiction itself, sometimes you do run into cities and jurisdictions that want a little bit more when it comes to the design aesthetics of the exteriors. And hopefully, but the best case scenario for the foundation, I think, is to do a rinse and repeat, because it saves on the cost on the pre-construction, where you're not having to hire both mechanical engineering, plumbing engineers to reinvent the wheel on a new project. When you have all of that engineering done up front, you can take it and essentially, but for a few modifications for site particulars, use the same floor plan, use the same engineering, and then completely redo the something again and again and again. However, like Dana mentioned, is we are going to run into jurisdictions, and we're also going to run into opportunities, like she just said, with some of our people in the industry that would prefer to build a traditional stick frame or otherwise. And so, like she said, it just opens the door up for other opportunities and just widens that potential.
So let's just say I'm not in Maine, but let's just say I go to Maine. I love Maine a lot. Northeast state, cold in the winter, beautiful in the summer. and I get permission to build, let's just say, a site with 100 units on it. What's my process if I come to you all and say, hey, you know what, I've got the site, I have, here's my budget, here's my, invested capital that I have cash wise to, fund this project. What happens throughout the process?
Well, I would take a step back, Travis, and
Okay.
just say that there's a lot of well-meaning people out in the world, thankfully, and people who really care about our veterans. The first thing I would do would be to do a needs assessment for your particular location. And most of our veterans and the veterans in need are in certain pockets of the US. Not to say that there aren't veterans in need in Maine. So if we want to go with that hypothesis, we certainly can. But I want to caution your audience. You're like, oh, I want to build one in my neighborhood. And it's always a great idea. But what's the need? And then beyond the need is the need for single men in studios and 1 bedrooms? Is it female head of household and their children for 2 and 3 bedroom? Is it a mixed perimeter? Is it a perimeter that's female or male only for PTSD or MST issues? So before you put a shovel in the ground, even if you have all your permits, you really want to figure out what the need is, and then how your local housing authority or agency is going to support that. Are there HUD vouchers available? Can you get a project-based voucher versus a personal-based voucher for the veterans that you're going to serve? And there's a myriad of things. All of these little nuances are why, to Jessica's point, this is a rinse and repeat, right? We don't want people to start getting into the morass and saying, well, there's what this is crazy. I can't figure my way out of this box, so I'm not going to do it. We would rather people come to us and have us, handhold them through the process and say, did you think about this? Have you thought about that? Where's your cap stack for equity coming from? How are you going to finance it? Are there tax credits available? Are there grants available in your neighborhood from your municipality, from your local bank or insurance companies? So there's a lot to get to the starting line. But when we're at the starting line, depending if we're building it modular or site built, it's, as Jessica said, we have a template. We've already done the soft costs. So we're going to save somebody coming in and I say, okay, well, we built a 47 unit, but we could double that and have 94 without just putting them next to each other or going 2 stories up or whatever we're going to do. We're going to save you $200,000, $300,000 in soft costs just because we've already designed and engineered the building.
So
I don't
you
know.
talk.
But that was a very long answer, and I don't know.
No. But because there are good idea fairies out there that are waving their wands all over the place. There are well-meaning people who can't understand, like myself, how we can even say that we have veterans homelessness. So I think I like the idea and the aspect, Dana, that you got really practical and down to earth with me real quick. And I appreciate that because it's not easy. There's a whole lot of building you have to do. But what I would say is it sounds like that you all really work to develop a relationship with that person or entity before you begin to understand and execute the best way possible. And that it sounds like that comes from a lot of experience with you both in your respective areas of operation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, for me, just because I've been doing it for so long, the construction part comes, construction is never easy. But I am a little bit of a masochist and I do love it. So once we get the go ahead and we're able to put that shovel in the ground, Dana's right. There are templates, whether it's a construction schedule for modular building or whether it's a construction schedule for traditional building. I think to me, the hardest part is putting the pieces of the puzzle together in the pre-construction and the development phase to get all of the approvals, to get all the funding, because those are the pieces of the puzzle that make the project go. Once you hit that point and you get all those pieces in the puzzle to fall into place, the starting gun goes off, and then that's when the general contractor takes over. And our mission is to deliver on time and on budget from there. But to Dana's point, I think that the bigger thing maybe for your audience is, and anybody that might be interested in getting involved is to her point is, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Of course, it's veterans. Veterans homelessness is what we're struggling against and trying to solve, little by little, one village at a time. But it is really understanding what your community needs are and how, and then how can we reach out to people within those communities for opportunities to build. I know in what I do, and the private market rate. Oh, sorry, we've got Kitty Cat here.
I love that. The cat is running the show.
I know.
That was awesome.
Is that there are opportunities, in my opinion, to partner with what we call market rate apartments. There are for-profit groups that would, we still have a housing crisis, I think. I know we have a housing crisis here in California. That's where I am. And I think that, across the country, there is a housing crisis. And I think to an earlier point, we've gotten here because of an element of NIMBYism, the not in my backyard. And so that doesn't go away. It just gets exacerbated. And I know right now in California, there are now state mandates for all of these jurisdictions that have been so slow to bring housing online that each one of these jurisdictions and cities and towns have mandates of, anywhere between 1,000 units to, I've seen upwards of 4,000 units by the year 2030, 2035 in some cases. And so it's a real struggle. We haven't gotten here overnight. It's been decades of not building, creating unaffordable homes. And I think that, overall, if we start building, and now so we're at this point where we have to build affordable and build regular market rate apartments. So I think that there's a marriage that can happen between private developers and affordable housing. Because there are certain mandates when you are even building a market rate apartment, a private apartment, market rate apartment building, where you do have to have an element of normally 10 to 15% affordable housing. However, I have seen in one of the projects that we have going on right now, where there was an interesting partnership between the teachers' housing and the private developer. And they were going to be able to bring on upwards of 200 units for teacher housing groups, and that was how the project went forward. And I think that there is opportunity out there for developers, for real estate developers that want to see their projects go, and may be looking for a partnership on, okay, how can we bring more affordable housing to the market with our project, with our development. And I think there's an opportunity there for Veterans Village to help with that. And I think we achieve it. It's a win-win situation for everybody.
So speaking of the Veterans Village, that's the image behind you right now, Dana, which it looks pristine. It looks like it's not aged or run down. It looks new. It has that very cool mural on it. You'd recognize it anywhere. If you would, tell us the story about that. What was it like being involved in that and seeing the veterans get their keys to their homes?
Well, I have to tell you that the stories that are coming out from our residents, and we've had several group breakfasts and kind of a meet and greet with some of our board members. And then we had Christmas in July, where some of our residents gave us a short list of things that they really needed to make their apartment into a true home. And we had 2 benefactors that came and fulfilled the entire wish list, and met some of our terrific residents. And I say, and I think that your audience will appreciate this, is that when we're talking to news media and we're talking to just Jack and Jill Q American, right? They have a certain image in mind of what a homeless veteran looks like, right? It's a guy of a certain age, potentially on your street corner with a cardboard sign. Okay. Somebody who came home from Vietnam and never figured it out. Okay. We have people living with us who are 30 years old. Yep. We have people living with us who are 73 years old. We have females living with us. We have males living with us. We have people who have families, people who don't have families. I mean, it is really all across the board. And although there is a common thread between stories of what people saw, whether it was in theater or just in service, and then they come home and they can't quite figure it out. They've seen things that have broken them. They've had things done to them that have broken them. They start making self-harm and bad decisions. They slide down the addiction path. There's a disconnect between their family units because the family units just don't understand. There's a myriad of stories. And when our residents tell these stories, and then the denouement of the story is, but now I'm here and I'm safe and I'm with my brothers and sisters and I'm understood and I feel seen and I'm not living in squalor and I don't have to worry about the lights not going on or not having a warm blanket. I mean, we, to a certain extent, we generally, Americans take for granted the service of our veterans and what they've been through, but also out the other side. I mean, for a gentleman in his early 70s to just be thankful to have a warm blanket and a coffee maker and a place to lay his head at night and feel safe after years of struggling through the system. I mean, it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, very rewarding for what we do to be able to provide that. This is not homeless housing. This is independent living. This is out the other side when people are ready to live independently. And we have to provide them with resources so that they don't end up housing insecure and homeless again. That means a safe, sober environment. That means a structure to the environment. And that means us bringing in resources, although it's independent living and we can't force anybody to do anything. We have financial literacy courses. We have a way for people to outfit their apartments through our wish lists so that they're not living in a sterile box. They can actually make a house a home. So it's a constant reinforcement. It's a constant resources, but obviously all of that costs money. And we need for people in the general public to join in the mission to make sure that this pristine, beautiful building stays maintained and in good repair, and that our residents have exactly what they need and where we meet them with those needs. So some people move in and they have all the furniture that they need, but some people are moving out of transitional housing and they're literally coming in with a trash bag and a toothbrush. Yep. So, it's a big lift, but it's a lift that we as a country have to do. As my father used to say, he thought that veterans separating from the, people separating from the military got a really raw deal. That was his assessment and his words. Mostly we do not see officers, we see enlisted. They've just fallen through the cracks. And then more recently, and this is from experience with my Haven years, there are fewer and fewer people joining the military. So the people in the military are doing more and more and more tours, especially enlisted. And then they who knows what they see over and over and over again. And then they come home, maybe with physical problems, but certainly there's a mental health aspect to it that we're just not addressing. And the VA can only do so much. And the private sector has to step up and help the process. To Jessica's point, if the VA is not going to build housing, and they're not, and cities throw a lot of money around with homelessness and housing insecurity, but they don't build anything. We need to build things, and we know how to build things. So this is the template for how to get that done.
Jessica, you flew a P3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, yeah. I was, full disclosure, I was a radar operator for a surface-to-air missile system. So we got to practice shooting planes like yours down. Those were P3s were easy. Anyway,
they were low and slow.
But still, you got to, one thing that we learned in Hawk School was that plane could go through storms with no problem. And I can't imagine what being on the controls of one of those is like during a storm. What's it like going from that and then serving in this sector where it's very competitive? It's a very high mission tempo, even though it's a civilian thing. You have to get done, you have to deliver, and you have to deliver on time all the time. Are there any differences in your approach? Does it feel any different at all?
It's interesting. I was just having this conversation today with someone about how there's so many parallels in the construction industry, and I think that veterans, would find a lot of what they leave behind. I think that that's a lot of things that, as a veteran, and you probably feel the same. I get asked all the time, do you miss it? And I do. But the thing that I miss the most is the camaraderie. That being said, I mentioned that I went back to my reunion, which is how I was introduced to the group. And one of the things that I love about what I do is that I say I feel very lucky because it feels like I get to go to a squadron to go to work every day. And it was for the reasons you just mentioned, is that there is, first of all, this, a great sense of purpose. There's something new every day, even, for as much as the rinse and repeat that I said, no two projects are the same. You always have something new that pops up, and it never ceases to surprise me that I'm like, well, I've never experienced this before, but okay, we're going to solve this problem and figure it out. But there is that same element, and like you said, whether we're building like I said, a private development or for market rate apartment building, or especially now that I've been involved with Veterans Village for over a year now, there is a mission, there is a purpose, and it's purpose driven. And I love being a part of this. I really do. I think that to touch on, I think one of the things that is always that I always reflect on, and I always go back to, like Dana was saying, is the security. And if you just break it down in the simplest term to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can't even get to that next level unless your basic needs, and that's being security, are met. And that's what we're trying to do. It's not first housing like Dana mentioned. It is stable housing so that those people can take that next step. They can flourish and they can achieve that next level. So I love that. I love that thought there and that concept, and just want to keep going and keep going on that mission.
Dana, kind of focusing on you for a second, I welcome the opportunity to talk to someone like yourself. And the reason is I talk to a lot of women who have and operate in the same professional lane you do. Very educated, highly accomplished, involved in their community in several different areas. Whether they're a mother or not, the community becomes their child, by extension, their family, right? And I get a lot of women asking me, hey, I have my dad served, my brothers served, my uncles served, and I want to serve veterans, but either I don't know how to get started, or I went down to the VFW and some Vietnam era veteran tore me a new one because, what can you tell me that I don't already know? You didn't serve. And so I'm very leery about doing this again, but I want to serve. And so to see you serving like this kind of validates that women, especially women who haven't served, who are civilians, can find purpose in veterans advocacy. So my question is, what do you say to a woman who says that to me? What should I say to her? Because I try to say, hey, you know what? Vietnam era veterans, God love them. You have to love them, and you have to show them that you love them before they'll open up to you. But that's coming from me, not from you. So I was curious if you had any advice for me.
Well, what I'm going to tell you, Travis, is that I've never really, obviously I'm a woman and I'm proud to be one, but I've been in almost exclusively male-dominated industries. And I don't know, I'm just a take no guff kind of person. So I don't really care, what gender you are. I'm gonna come in with my very, very strong opinions and passion and zeal to get stuff done. And if you stand in my way, so I'm gonna tell you a brief anecdote. So I was sitting on the board of the USO, and obviously I have not served, and there was always a hierarchy with almost every veterans charity or VSO in general. You're in a board meeting and everybody refers to the highest rank in the room. I don't really care because I wasn't in the military. So if you're an admiral and you're still a moron, then that doesn't mean as much to me as it may mean to you or other veterans in the room. And I did, in fact, sit on a board where the admiral was a moron. So, you know, I had to raise my hand and say, hey, that's delightful. And I have no idea how you ran an entire battalion when you can't run a board of 30 people sitting right in front of you. But having said that, here's the goal, here's the mission. So I'm telling you this anecdote because a guy who became a very close friend and then eventually became the director of that chapter of the USO, I think he's still now a reservist, but he was a Navy SEAL. And so he said we worked well together because he was a precision sniper and I was scorched earth. And that's why we worked well together, because if he couldn't get it done with pinpoint precision, I would just come in with my, you know, even gonna just take everybody out.
Flamethrower.
Right. Not to say that that's, you know, the best way to approach a new board, but I will tell you that that's been my experience. Most, especially organizations, are completely dysfunctional and boards are completely dysfunctional. You've got that 80-20 rule where 20% of the board is doing 80% of the work. And for anybody with a personality like mine or Jessica's, we have no tolerance for that. So our board is very small. We're always looking for more people to join our board. And I invite your audience. We're a national board. We're from coast to coast, from Florida to the Northeast to California to here in Arizona. So we're always looking for good board members, but it's about accountability and it's about putting up or shutting up. It's goal-oriented, it's task-oriented. And that didn't answer your question. The answer to your question is I wouldn't start at a VFW. The VFWs, although they do really great work and there's ladies auxiliary groups within most of those VFWs, they're, for the ones that I've had interaction with, which are probably just a couple hundred out of a couple thousand across the country, they're pretty antiquated, right? You have VSOs like in Philadelphia, the Veterans Multi-Service Center. They run a male perimeter and a women's perimeter. They monitor all of the movement of homeless and housing insecure veterans in the tri-state area, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. They do an amazing job. They have amazing volunteers. They have amazing programs, but they're very nimble and they're very modern. So what I would say to females specifically, or anybody who wants to get involved in helping veterans in the veterans community, look to your regional resources that are really on the cutting edge, not the VFWs and the American Legions, because as great as they are for camaraderie and a cold beer, they're very mired in tradition, let's say, not innovation.
Okay, fair enough.
Jessica, you have something to add to that?
No, I think that is probably I think they are good sources and good places, like you said, to go have a cold beer. I think what we're trying to do, or the camaraderie part, right? But I think that we're trying to take that next step forward. So I would agree with what you just said.
Speaking of next step forward, like, first of all, I'm on the website going through this and I'm like, this is like Lego blocks and I love Lego blocks. And I'm like, this is just amazing how these things come together. And we could spend a whole series on how this came to be, because there's technical aspects, building aspects, the regulatory, all that stuff. So we haven't even scratched the surface. I wish we had like a whole year for this. I really do. You're at this point and you have something behind you that you all have built. What is next for Veterans Villages at this point? Are you trying to expand into different, regional areas, cities? Is it refining the process? Is it, getting efficiencies in costs and everything? What's the next thing you're trying to deal with as you move your organization forward?
Our first and foremost is to stabilize Philadelphia and refinance it so that we can have it be self-sustaining. Either fees for service plus donations is ideal, and then be able to focus our energies on Veterans Village 2, 3, and 4. As Jessica mentioned, we've had interest from all across the country. It's really about what's the next logical project after Philadelphia. That might be California, it could be Denver, it could be Chicago. We've had interest in Tucson, we've had interest in Virginia. There's still interest in the Northeast because there's a lot of veterans because of the joint bases in New Jersey and 2 big bases in Pennsylvania and Western Pennsylvania. So it really comes down to where the need is and where we have boots on the ground and support for the next building. Philadelphia was easy because I was based there and my business was there and VBC was there. And so we had eyes on the prize and boots on the ground the entire time. Now that we have board members across the country, it could easily be in the Bay Area and have Jessica and her support team oversee that. It could be in Florida where we have another board member and she could be the eyes on the prize. What we don't want to do is build in a place where we can't easily go and see the project coming to fruition, or have our supporters and people that we trust there to oversee the project. Because to Jessica's point again, construction is filled with pitfalls, obstacles, and a myriad of hiccups that arise. And if you're not on top of it, it could go sideways. So we're going to stabilize Philadelphia, and then I believe the universe is going to send us the next logical Veterans Village 2. In the interim, if there's another group out there who wants to build Veterans Village 2 now, we are ready, willing, and able to give them information, insight, and direction.
How can people get connected with the mission you all are doing besides the obvious? Is it simply the website, get started there, or is there another way you want them to interact with you?
Our new website, veteransvillages, plural.org. They can contact us through the site. We're on all major social media, including LinkedIn. They can contact us directly. We're not shy, as you can see. So they can contact us directly. We're happy to have conversations. We're looking for obviously donations. We're looking for not only donations for the current project, but also donations to help furnish resident apartments with their wish list items. We're looking forward to, and Jessica's working very specifically on this, future construction partners who, for example, at this building, Saint-Gobain Certitude, which is a global company, they provided us with all of the facade material. Doesn't seem, well, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, they saved us $140,000 in construction costs by donating materials that they wanted to market. It was a new product for them, but also to be a part of this community. Dow Tile, same thing. They gave us tile for our bathrooms because they wanted to be a part of this community. We have plumbing contractors, HVAC contractors, lighting fixtures. There's so many ways on the construction side to get involved. That might mean labor and materials rather than just stroking a check. There's volunteer opportunities. There's so many ways for people to get involved, not only in the Philadelphia project, but future projects.
Fantastic, fantastic. So as we wind this down, I feel like I've been drinking out of a fire hose, and I love it. It's great.
You're a Marine. You're supposed to drink out of a fire hose.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you, I mean, just throwing heat the whole time, and I love it. I love it because, this is how you learn, right? Mm-hmm. Do you ever see a time where we won't have to do this for veterans in this country, where we will make sure that the veterans actually taken care of? Is it a combination of the demographic getting smaller because veterans are aging out and that's the truth, or we finally wake up and say we're going to truly put veterans first?
I'll take that
Jessica?
one. I think that's we recently, like I said, we're on a fundraising campaign, and I think the number of current in the U.S., the number of homeless veterans as of this past August is roughly just under 70,000 homeless veterans. So I think that it's a lofty goal to house all those 70,000, especially given other, homelessness that we're facing in the country. I think that it takes a lot. I think that, like I mentioned, everybody needs to lean in and do their part, whether it's reaching out to communities. We touched on it in the beginning, and explaining to them, having those community meetings on why this village would be a great add to their community, and understanding their concerns about having an affordable housing project in their backyard. I think it's a matter of like Dana said earlier, and you touched on, is that a lot of times the military does use you up. They shake your hand and say good luck and thank you very much for your service, and they send you on your way. So I think that it's going to be a lot of different things that is going to have to solve the issue of how someone who's a veteran becomes homeless. It's not going to be one single item, and it's probably going to be, our military doing better on transitioning, finding those people that are separating and becoming veterans, guidance for that next chapter in their life. I think it's bringing more housing to the market, whether that's market rate apartments or affordable housing. And like we were saying before, I think one of the things that is really special about veterans villages is that it takes a village to the camaraderie, again, that people find in these veterans village. It's a common background. It's a common shared experience that just goes so far. And it seems, it seems like it's not that big a deal, but as Dana said, when you're having that bad day, you're sitting in the common area room, you just pass somebody in the hall that has that common and shared background and experience. And that makes all the difference. So one village at a time.
One village at a time. Ladies, I mean, again, we could spend the next 2 months just going over different aspects of this. No, I'm serious, because
we'll come back, Travis. We'll come
back.
You want us, we'll come back.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay.
I promise you that, because it's just refreshing to see new technology and new thoughts being brought into this. I love the synergy between civilians and veterans. You're a veteran, Jessica, and Dana, to close this out, your father did serve in the Korean War, and I wish we had more Korean War stories to listen to, because those were special men and women who went over there. You said your father had passed on, but do you think that he's looking down at you right now, proud of what you're doing for those who served our country?
Oh, absolutely. This is part of his life. I mean, my father was a very interesting man and a serial entrepreneur, and we shared that passion. We also shared a birthday, so we were very like-minded and of the same ilk. He used to say, and I'm not going to dispute this, although I think he was the company accountant, he said that he was a spy, which is completely possible. But he always fought for veterans and was always very proud that I was serving the veteran community. We did a lot of community service together. We did welfare to work programs and speaking engagements, and I started an animal charity, and my father was very big in the arts, and he was always very much about community. But it came back to the fact that he felt that he got out, and as a CPA had sort of a path already paved for him. He went on to do other things. He hated being a CPA, but it was a foundation. So to Jessica's point, when he separated from the military, he didn't need a whole bunch of guidance because he was already on track to have a professional life. But he always thought that separation, that handshake and pat on the back, was not nearly enough to set people up for success. So his professional picture hangs proudly in Veterans Village, and his picture of him in uniform also hangs proudly in our community room, surrounded by sponsor plaques. So I think he's very happy with this and wants to see it replicated.
Fantastic. Jessica, you go from flying a P-3 Orion to doing this. That's, to me, the quintessential military story. how do you go from doing one thing completely unrelated to your current job now and doing it well? There's a lot to learn there. And look, if you guys come back, ladies come back, excuse me. If you ladies come back, we got to have your cat back. The cat's got to be part of the show somehow. I really be part of the show. I mean,
I'm sure she'll make an entrance. She's got a mind of her own. So
I'm just
sure
saying though, but that made my day. That made my day.
Oh, good.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you just have a lot of different aspects of service here. Veterans Villages is a thing. There's ways you can get involved. There's a whole lot we can learn from the amazing individuals behind this organization. Dana and Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. You're coming back on. We just don't know when, but it will be soon. As we say in Oscar Mike Radio, we're mission in flight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinister One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.